Hey everyone, welcome into our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dale's got a hot podcast here today. We're bringing back Big Mike from Advanced Nutrients to talk about legalization, things that you may not be aware of when we talk about the hemp and the cannabis space, and some things that we need to go over that you are going to be educated on. So with that, let's welcome in here on a Tuesday. AV, good to see you. Should have a good one here. Always love the behind the scenes type of information we get from Big Mike.
Yeah, it's always an abstract conversation too, which is good to get away from the capital markets and the stock-focused conversations. Science, what they're doing over at Advanced Nutrients, history as it relates to the plant, and some of the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. But yeah, it's always intriguing and interesting conversations.
You got to understand where you are to get where you need to go. And with that, let's welcome in Big Mike, CEO of Advanced Nutrients. Good to see you, sir.
Happy to be on the show again. Thank you for having me.
You've been traveling a lot. I think you were over in Spain recently.
Yeah, Barcelona.
How was that?
It's great. Way different atmosphere, a lot more chill than the United States, let's just say. And it's funny when we send our team members over there, we say they get the Spanish flu because they fall in love with Spain because everything's nice, neat, orderly. They respect the police. You got your pickpocketers and your petty crime stuff going on, but for the most part, it's a beautiful place. Beautiful place.
Was it Cannabis that was going on?
Yeah.
I wasn't there for Cannabis. I was just there for business. I was there for 2 weeks.
Oh,
taking care of
nice.
business. Yeah.
Never been to Barcelona, but I heard it's one of the best cities in the world.
World-class city.
Yeah.
City.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I know you got a lot of traveling coming up as well, but wanted to have you on. We keep talking about, the current farm bill related to, the hemp industry and how they've got this loophole that's been going on for quite some time. And it's created a lot of attention within this industry. What do you make of all this, especially with some of the stuff that's going on in Texas right now? We've talked off camera before we got started about this 0.3% threshold and a number that was actually made up by Dr. Ernest Small back in the 1970s. But before we get into all this stuff, what do you make of this right now?
Wow. Both with Jim Higgin, it was a great interview you had with him from the cornbread hemp they call themselves. I can remember the story way back when in High Times about the cornbread mafia that he was talking about.
Yep.
No
Here's
kidding.
the thing. Look, that hemp is everywhere. People are crossing over. It's blurred. I think there's like 31 states. If you look at them, there's some kind of hemp going on in there. Both groups must come together. Why? For a single thing: the federal legalization of cannabis. If you think about one thing that they can all agree on, should be the North Star. That should be the descheduling of cannabis. When you look at all of the things that you could possibly do, descheduling is the number one thing that's going to move the needle the greatest for all of us.
Yeah.
So I'd like to read something to you real quick. So I work.
Yeah, go ahead.
Meredith Burak. She is a political strategist. Been working with her for several years. Basically, she said rescheduling was Biden's half measure. The rules have changed, and now it's our shot to go bigger and actually fix it. Yes, rescheduling to Schedule 3 is in motion, but here's why it falls short. Cannabis still stays federally illegal. Research remains trapped in FDA's pharma-only pathway. Dispensary products stay off limits to scientists. Global trade stays locked, and veteran access risks remain the same. Now, and yes, 280E does go away under that. However, with descheduling, it's the only path that delivers banking, SBA, insurance access, legal research on real dispensary products, public safety, national standards, entry into global markets. That's a big one. And legal charity for patients, providers, and investors. And also, a fact is, most people aren't aware that the jobs in our industry aren't counted by the feds. And the day that it would become descheduled, Trump could say, hey, it's going to create 443,000 jobs I just created in this quarter. So those are the reasons why I believe the North Star for both groups should be the legalization of hemp, and it should be done through descheduling. All of us can agree on that. I've been in a lot of groups, I've listened to a lot of stuff, and they just start going down all these rabbit holes, one rabbit hole over the next, and limits and this. none of that matters unless we get it legalized, federally
Yeah.
legalized. And
Yeah.
So
so,
having that as the North Star, ultimately, it sounds great if you're looking at this from a pragmatic point of view. But we still have people that are pushing reefer madness within
yeah,
the halls of government. We still have people that are saying that cannabis is a gateway drug, regardless of the DEA refuting that notion, I think, in 2016, that cannabis is not a gateway drug. Um, how do you think we get there without incremental reform? Because rescheduling brings the walls down. And while I agree that it's not enough,
yeah,
it does increase medical research, which then we can create viable outcomes that will reinforce the notion of this needs to be descheduled and it has no bearing being on the CSA in the
Mhm.
first place.
I look, the thing that's going to kick the door open the easiest is the one that we should be going for. But if you want to go for something that's substantial, it's descheduling. Maybe you want to go for banking reform or something to kick that door open, get rid of
I think
280.
banking reform. I don't think banking reform really gets us anywhere. To be completely honest,
Oh,
I think banking reform is a great
well,
headline.
a lot.
I think banking reform it creates a better environment for the companies, but I don't think it really elevates the cause for
It does.
getting us closer to descheduling.
But if you want a door opener, I'm just saying, what's the easiest door opener or what is uh, look, there's a lot of groups. There must be 60, 70 groups out there. And if you have focus energy to one single thing, and
Yeah.
we're all pushing on that one single thing, magic happens sometimes. Sometimes
Yeah.
the lights go on.
Well, I think you're right. Incremental steps, and if somebody introduces to banking for this industry the proper way, we'd welcome that with open arms. But um, you know, did you get a chance to see the two bills that were filed last week by Congressman Dave Joyce?
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting on the states level that we could see actual states, at least what he's proposing is certain states that have legalized it,
mhm.
they're 280E exempt. I think that's a start, but do you agree with that framework, or do you think that complicates things more?
If you look at that, if you look at it, it gives FDA a lot of power and alcohol and tobacco. So you can see where the setup's going to go with that.
Yeah.
There's someone behind the scenes pushing that from those two sectors, for sure.
Hmm. So what do you think that means further to that then?
I think you see a lot more hemp beverages, and this hemp thing. I don't think it's going to go away. It's just as
It's
big
not.
as a legal cannabis industry. The two should somehow figure out how to come together. The problem with hemp is it's not regulated. It has
Yeah.
to be regulated. There's all these, you know,
Do you have any contacts
So
within?
catalogs and all this stuff. They got some crazy stuff out there. I walked into these smoke shops and to see what the heck is going on, and it's like, okay, some guys are selling THCA flower. Okay, we know that's that. But then you see THCO, HACE,
yeah.
THCP, all these other chemical compounds, stuff you've never even heard of, have never been tested. We don't know the efficacy of it. We don't know if it's killing our brain cells or what it's doing to us.
Hmm.
So my
Anyway,
question: do
we
you
do
think
know.
that in a world where cannabinoids THC is descheduled and legalized, does it even make sense anymore to make these intoxicating products out of hemp versus marijuana due to the higher concentration of THC within the plant matter, and you can just grow it outdoors that you're going to blast it all down into distillate anyway, so you're not growing it indoor, you're not growing it in these high cost environments. Does hemp get phased out in a world where THC is descheduled?
Hemp originally should be for the industrial use. There's so many uses
Correct.
for hemp, and then there's cannabis, marijuana, adult use, medical use, and that's a whole separate animal in itself. And the two
Mhm.
should be separated out, absolutely,
Yeah.
because right now, the way the hemp bill could impact farmers, and hemp would be a great product for American farmers to grow. And you see a lot of the reason tobacco's in there is because you see a lot of tobacco fields are no longer being used, and they got this empty land, and now they want to grow hemp for industrial use, uh, and it's going to make it very tough for them. If
Yeah.
the new farm bill that comes out, they're going to have to be very, very cognizant of that fact that they got to keep the farmers keep it open for the farmers,
Yeah.
real farmers.
And don't look now, that farm bill, that was pretty much the reason why it was put in place to begin with. But don't look now, that's 2018. That's 7 years ago. A
Yeah.
lot changes, especially in this industry within a 7-year
And,
span, right?
and look what we have since. We have a fully legal cannabis industry that's formed in the United States under the guise of hemp. That loophole in the farm bill kicked off.
It gets even darker, murkier,
Yeah.
let's just call it, because of
Yeah.
the Analog Act. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch has said that the Analog Act is likely unconstitutional and void because of its vagueness.
Because of its
So,
vagueness?
Vagueness, yes. So the product can only become illicit or illegal by a court's decision. Like you have a jury trial, the jury finds you guilty, that substance is now.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock. What is this Analog Act? Because you were saying before that you were following this closely, and why should, I guess, people that follow this space be paying attention? What might they be missing?
Because the folks that are in the hemp industry understand this Analog Act, and the Analog Act has got to be shored up if you want to make any kind of a impact on the hemp industry and people using creating these different analogs that they're creating. And you'll see more and more of these coming, and it's just going to drift further and further away from its true nature, which is THC.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, because it's like whack-a-mole. You're going to see synthetics get regulated or get kneecapped, and then you're going to see another synthetic that is just a molecule different pop up on the shelves that are then not covered under that umbrella legislation.
That's right.
And it's just going to keep going and going and going. That's why we have
So,
Delta 8, Delta 10, THCP,
Exactly.
THC 0,
Yeah.
HHC, all these crazy molecules,
Yeah.
because they're just circumventing regulation in perpetuity.
Yeah.
so what's the solution here? Like, yes, descheduling, full on legalization, but what is ultimately the solution? Like that's I don't think that's in the cards right now. But what is a realistic solution right now for this saga that's going on between like the two industries?
The coming together, just coming
Yeah.
together with a single objective. Don't go down all the damn rabbit holes that everybody wants to go down, and they have their own agendas. That's great. First, let's get the damn thing legalized. Get it legalized at a federal level, medically or recreationally, adult use, or both. We got to get it legalized. That is
Okay.
number one thing. None of us can move until it gets legalized. So how do we get it legalized? What's the quickest, fastest way? Where's the pressure point that we can put onto Washington and make a lot of noise? That's how I feel about it. That's my belief.
What do you think of the industry as a whole and the presence that we're trying to make in Washington right now? Are we doing enough? Do you think like should we be doing more? Are we making progress? Like, what's the latest on what you're seeing since Donald Trump has entered into office?
Well, again, we got wars raging and stuff, and that's probably on the bottom of his list right now. Are we
Yeah, I get it.
progress? So far, he's kept all his promises. I believe that, yes, we're going to see movement in 2025 in regards to cannabis in some kind of form. Something's going to happen that will be beneficial for our industry.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I hear you.
Stay cautious.
I think that you have a point, and I think, like, without getting too much into detail, there is progress being made. And I think people get frustrated with me saying something like that, but I have to believe that some of the people that we've reached out to said we're working in conjunction with each other. We're making more progress than ever. I don't think people are actually going to believe that until actually something happens, because that's just how many times that we've been down this road before, which I totally get. But it's been positive, even though when you look at the markets.
Mhm.
And with the way, we look at some of the situations and environments a lot of these companies are in right now, it looks bleak. But
Yeah.
By the
compare
way,
your. Go ahead.
I read from Meredith that got in front of RFK. He's seen it. He's read it.
What got in front of RFK?
I
Sorry.
just read to you. What I just read to you.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Huh. Do you still keep in touch with Brian Lanza, gentleman that you had a conversation with a couple months ago?
I haven't, that's a good idea. I need to touch base with Brian and see what the heck has transpired since the last time that we spoke.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about too is a little bit about science. Something you brought up. It's called tetraploids.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting thing, and everybody wants to know about margins, and there's no better way that obviously to enhance your margins and enhance your science and really understand the growth of a plant. So what are they and why is it important?
Well, because tetraploids make triploids. And so, what is a tetraploid? Well, it has 4 sets of chromosomes instead of 2. The plants that we're currently growing are diploids. And so, you take a diploid and you breed it with a tetraploid because that's got 4 chromosome sets, and they will produce a triploid with 3 chromosome sets. That plant is bigger, beefier, stronger. It's like a plant that has been genetically gifted. Let's just call it that. We average 5.88 pounds per light with triploids and
In comparison to what?
diploids.
And which is what? Give me an example as far as pounds.
I don't understand that.
You were saying, would say that again, and maybe I misunderstood. You're saying under 1 light, it's 5. Sorry, you were going to say something.
5.88 pounds per light. Yeah.
Yeah. Which used to be
that's huge. Okay, because most guys are growing between 2 and 3. The really great growers are going between 3 and 4.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it used to be 3 a light. 3 a light was like unheard of, and then because I think it was Brett Roper back in the day, and Andy, the guys at Medicine Man that have the book 3 a light.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then 5.6 is insane as far as yield per light. But so what are the actual plants that are the tetraploids that you're crossbreeding with the diploids?
5 tetraploids right now ready to go, and we can obviously do any. You can give us a diploid, we can turn it into a tetraploid. We're looking nationally for cloning facilities that would like to do a licensing deal with our tetraploids so they can make triploids.
So are the tetraploids just certain strains of cannabis that happen to have those 4 sets of chromosomes?
No. We get in there and we
So you're using genetic.
We have a process. We have a process. We can make, triploids, tetraploids, and octoploids. We have the technology to do that.
Wow.
And by the way, if you look at Driscoll berries, you see Driscoll on there.
Yeah, I eat them all. I got them in my fridge.
Yeah, great berries. They're big. You know why? Because those are octoploids. And Driscoll is a genetics company that makes all those farmers put their brand on there, the Driscoll brand. But Driscoll itself is a genetics company.
So where was the idea? Where did this come from? It's just you're experimenting, coming up with new ideas all the time?
Yeah, I have a great science team. We have a really smart molecular mining guy, and he's able to do all these things. It's at another level.
So if you're CEO of a company, why would this be important? I think the obvious is what you just said, right?
Yeah, yield. Oh, by the way, terpenes go up, cannabinoids go up.
Okay. And then also, if you're like we were talking about earlier with distillate in the hemp space, if you're yielding more, your plants are yielding more weight. You're gonna blow them down, and they're gonna yield more distillate and extracts coming out of per plant as well,
or hash.
Right? Yeah,
rosin.
Huh. That's interesting to say the least. You got a few events coming up too. I think you wanted to bring up too is CanMed. That's going to be happening up in Puerto Rico on June the 17th to the 20th, if I'm correct. And I wrote down those dates. But why is this a big event? What's going to be discussed?
This is a huge event. Every single major company, medium company, everyone should send their smartest scientist or smartest person to this event. Why? Because the brightest minds in cannabis science are all there. This is the brain trust of cannabis. These guys are so smart. We've been big supporters of CanMed for the last 9 years when they started in Harvard, and this year they're in Puerto Rico. We're a major sponsor, been a major sponsor, because science is the truth. And if you want to really understand, not bro science, but actually real science, go there. We have cultivation panels too. I don't know what they are going to be on this year, but we have 2 of them, and they were last year some of the favorite panels.
So you've been a sponsor for what, 9 years? You said. How's the industry, or should say, how's the event, I guess, evolved over time in that time frame?
The scientists, they love coming out to this. It's a full house every single year. And they come from all over the world. These are the brightest minds in cannabis in the world. Anyone who's not going to CanMed just doesn't. You're just missing out on a huge opportunity. Some of the facts, the things that like one of the things that we can do that most we're way ahead is, again, when you take a gene edit, it's called a construct, and take that construct and then be able to turn it into a plant. Most people are at a 1 to 3%. We're at 93%. Why? Because one of the guys there, a scientist that we met, we had one piece of the puzzle, he had the other piece of the puzzle, and we made a deal. And we made the deal with the university. I'm not going to say which one yet, but it's been done. And,
Huh.
and so it allows us, we have a huge advantage in the marketplace when it comes to genetics.
Where do a lot of these scientists that attend this event, where are they from?
Man, they're from, you name it, Israel, Czech Republic, you
Yeah,
name the country, there's a scientist probably there from any major country. They're all there.
Yeah.
And by the way, they love to share. They love to share information. They're pretty much an open book. So you want to learn,
Yeah.
you want to learn to make a better product, ask a question. They'll be more than happy to help you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I saw some of the exporting numbers from Canadian LPs over the past year, it was over 270% growth in the European market. Anthony and I were just in Washington 2-3 weeks ago with Will and the team from Artemis Growth Partners, which as a company that you're very familiar with. Biggest takeaway that we got is the messaging is right and the ever evolving growth of the EU, and it's medical first. And they're getting backings from actual countries, from their governments, which is nice to see versus what's going on here in the US. But you were over in Spain, you just got business, but it's tremendous to see. I don't think people really understand what's going on here. And I know you're going to be in Germany in June. We're going to actually be going with you, but great to see that everything is remaining the status quo in Germany and the growth that's taking place over the past 12 months. It appears that's going to continue this trend. But what can you share on what you've learned about how much this EU market is poised to grow, not long term, but in the immediate short term as well?
They're about 3 to 5 years behind us. Uh,
yeah,
there's huge opportunities still. There's still a lot of hydroponic stores there. There's used to be
Yep.
3,000. They're down to 2,000, and then in the next couple of years, it's probably going to go down to 1,000 as more and more countries come on board with their own programs. Italy, when we talk about hemp, they just outlawed hemp. Italy, and the crazy thing about Italy is, for the medical market, the police grow the cannabis.
yeah.
I don't know how good it is, but it can't be that good.
So question, Mike, do you think
So
do you think that U.S. companies and the U.S. as an overall whole piece of the pie doesn't put enough emphasis on R&D and the scientific aspect of this industry, and they're just hyper focused on consumerism and just getting product into people's hands without actually paying attention to the science and the research and development that needs to go into this from an investment standpoint?
seems to be that way. That's why
Yeah.
I'm a big promoter of CanMed, because science reveals the truth. If you want to know
Interesting.
the truth and you don't want a bunch of bro science and BS, go to CanMed. It's beautiful Puerto Rico. It's warm.
Yeah.
It's
I think sometimes the reputation in the US is like you've got people with a Wall Street background getting into the industry where they're putting numbers. It's almost like putting the cart before the horse. Do you agree with that? Like, because we've learned a lot of valuable lessons. And let's face it, it's the moment of truth time for a lot of companies in this industry. And you got to grow a good product in order to obviously generate the yields that you desperately need. And the balance sheets don't lie.
Yeah, quality matters. It always has. Sure, there's a place for what we call mids and the bottom tier. And by the way, a lot of those smoke shops, I call them the cheap man's high place. To go in there, that's like the lower level, and you get into the dispensaries. You got mid level, and then you got your ultra premium flower. More and more LPs that we're talking to are concerned more about quality now than
Yeah.
they are just about, they're concerned with yield and quality. And so they're really banging on our door now, where
Hmm.
it's a good place to be right now.
Yeah, I bet. I thought it was interesting news last week too, when Cureleaf announced that they retrofitted one of their dispensaries. Did you see that news? I
For
don't
hemp,
know if you got. Yeah. Do you think that's a trend that we'll see more and more of?
well, from a tax standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for these companies to do that. While that door is open, take advantage of it as long as it can. And who knows, it might just stay open because they're just as big an industry as the legal market is.
Yep.
And if they get their group together better than we, the regular cannabis folks get their groups together and have a single focus, you'll be
Yeah.
surprised. It's whoever's the most organized is going to win this battle. And I say they should come together. I mean, it'd be great if the whole cannabis industry just shipped over and just to the hemp industry, and By the way, this shows you if because of high taxation, that is why that hemp industry grew so fast, because it's being treated like a regular business, just like they do in Germany.
Yep.
Watch Germany grow for
Well said.
be the major supplier of Europe.
Well said. That's for sure. Do you talk to anybody from that side of the industry?
The hemp side,
Yeah.
not a lot. That's why when you had Jim on, it was good. It was refreshing to see that. And
Yeah, like
what
it was an idea. I saw some back and forth on Twitter. Anthony reached out to him, and it was like it's all put together. And the last thing we want to do is just invite the turkey to Christmas dinner. We wanted to have an actual conversation so we can learn a little bit as to what they're thinking. And I think it was great dialogue. But there was one of the viewers that was on commenting. He was just like, "Good morning, hemp haters," and I'm like, "That's the last thing we want." I just would like to be curious as to how they view the cannabis space. But the biggest takeaway that I got, I feel like there's some things that maybe he danced around a little bit, but for the most part, he wants us to be regulated just like any normal cannabis operating company does too. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. And then, who knows? Maybe they'll start taxing the hemp industry like they do the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
But it has to be regulated. All these analogs, until they're proven, they should be off the table. But then the Analog Act has that door wide open, leaves it wide open right now, unless they change some laws.
Yeah. Big news, obviously, in the macro level. We've seen President Trump talk about these tariffs. Has it affected the cannabis space at all with the operations that you're doing?
Well, there's a lot of talk from a lot of people, but the impact hasn't been. We haven't felt that. We don't go to China. We deal with Israel, Haifa, chemicals, and different game.
Yeah. So you've been speaking to quite a few companies that have been impacted already.
They're talking about it. Especially the people with the vape pens, the cartridges, all that. They're the ones who are going to be mostly impacted.
No kidding.
Because they get all that stuff from China. The beauty is now that hopefully there'll be some American-born businesses that will prosper because of that.
Yeah, I think something gets done there in the next 60 days, but who am I to say like that? But 245% tariff, that can't sustain itself. But
it's 140.
Yeah,
it's 145.
Tariff negotiations aren't done. They're going to keep. This is a leverage card that Trump is using for God what.
That's for sure. Well, listen, always great catching up with you. Love the feedback, and looking forward to this Germany trip. But what's the event, just for those that don't know, that should keep their eye on the event in Germany as well?
Mary Jane Berlin. Last year, it was in 2 halls. This year, it's in 5 halls. It is all sold out. They're expecting 275,000 people to come through there in 4 days.
I checked my flights. There's no direct flights from where I am, but guess where the stopover is? It's in Iceland. And I know one of your colleagues that works with you was actually in Iceland coming back from Spain. Right. And I thought maybe I should spend a couple days in Iceland because some of the stories he was discussing, I've never been, but I heard it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. I've been there, land of fire and ice. They actually move the roads, and also the road will have a turn in there. And why? Because that's where the elves live. I swear to God. I'm not making this up. They got a whole other culture there. But
all right, my friend, let's keep in. What's that, sir? You're going to say?
I was just going to say, Iceland, 30% of the population are published authors. So, anyways.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Good to know. Well, listen, always great catching up with you. And like I said, great to get some direction and guidance and education on where the industry has been in the past, but where we are going to be going moving forward. But the big takeaway here is today is let's unite the both industries and legalize this already, right?
That's it. You bet. We'll find a North Star and let's have some focus energy on it from all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Let's keep in touch. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike.
On the show today. All right.
All right.
Anthony.
Thanks, Big Mike. Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. What'd you all think? Is there any information that we're missing? Is there anything you want us to cover? As these industries heat up, we're getting access to more and more big hosts. So let us know the questions that you want us to ask for you. As usual, smash that like button. We want this to go viral. Click on that bell for all notifications for the latest interviews that we're doing. And as usual, let's build this community. Subscribe to our channel because we appreciate it, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.